Hello, guys. Welcome back to another podcast of MMA.I. Today, I'm once again joined by my co-host Oscar Silva on the March and Silva MMA show. How's it going?
It's going great, man. When you come off a UFC card like UFC Austin, there's nothing but energy running through your body, man. And that's what I'm feeling. Still riding off that high. We saw an unbelievable bout of first-round KOs on that card. And they were just back to back to back. It was absolutely crazy what we saw in Austin. Not a single fight disappointed me, so I say we get right to it. This might have been the UFC fight card of the year so far, and that's saying something because last week we had UFC 275 and we had UFC London, but this right here was off the chain. Okay, let's start with the main event. UFC Fight Night was headlined by Calvin Kattar and Josh Emmett, and in the main event, Josh Emmett won via split decision. A lot of people are crying robbery for this one. I'm not exactly saying that. I actually thought that Josh Emmett really had a solid case to win the fight. I did score it to Calvin Kattar, and I actually scored it 49-46, 4-1 for Calvin Kattar. But it's all depending on your judging style. But in this case, Judge Chris Lee scored round 4 in favor of Josh Emmett, and that is inexcusable. Round 4 was the clearest round of the entire fight. It's the round where Calvin Kattar nearly doubled up on significant strikes versus Josh Emmett. It's the round where he rocked him with a spinning elbow. I have no idea how you score that round for Josh Emmett. So, in a way, you can say it was a robbery because Chris Lee was not paying attention in that 4th round. And had he paid attention, he would have given it to Calvin Kattar, and we'd be talking about Calvin Kattar right now. But nonetheless, Josh Emmett, he did really good work. He did what he intended on doing. He intimidated Calvin Kattar, and that's the reason Kattar lost his fight. He was scared of, getting hit with those big bombs that Josh was throwing. And that's the problem there. Josh Emmett, I felt like he was hitting Kattar a lot, but Kattar was doing a good job of blocking. That's why I didn't score these rounds for Josh, because Kattar was blocking a lot. And Kattar was landing a very clean jab. So that's why I scored those rounds for Kattar. But nonetheless, Calvin Kattar, this is a tough loss for him. But Josh on the other side, this is exactly the win he needed, in my eyes, to get a title shot. He's now on the biggest win streak of anybody in the top 5. And the other people in the top 5, they're actually booked right now. So Josh is the guy. Should Volkanovski beat Holloway, I think that Volkanovski would be looking to stay active, probably fight in December, and he would fight a guy like Josh Emmett. That's what I see happening. Josh Emmett, as I said, round 1, round 2, he's really intimidating Kattar with the power. Same thing round 3, but these were all close rounds. But round 4 and round 5, I actually thought were pretty easy to score for Calvin. I already said that round 4 was the most clear round of the fight. In round 5, both guys wanted it bad, and I thought that Kattar definitely did better work. So, tough loss for Kattar, but I don't think this is something that sets him back because a lot of people thought he won. But this was fight of the night for a reason. It was very high stakes, very anxious because you knew one guy could knock the other down at any moment. What did you make of Josh Emmett's split decision win?
I mean, it was a fantastic fight, a very, very close fight. Obviously, the split decision, that justified, obviously, how close it was. And obviously, as you talked about, one of the scorecards that was totally off, giving round 4, Calvin Kattar, obviously a clear round. There was one thing that we knew heading into this fight, well, 2 things. Is Calvin Kattar is always going to have the more volume, and Josh Emmett is always going to be the more patient striker. And that's what we really saw in this fight. We saw, as you talked about, Josh Emmett just intimidating Calvin Kattar. And scared of the power, and it played in his factor, and he got the job done. Close fight. Not a lot of people agreed with it, but I mean, a fight as close as this, you could really call it either way.
Yeah, for sure. That's why I wasn't, really mad, even though I thought Calvin Kattar had done slightly better work. But yeah, that's just the game right now, especially on Texas. Texas, in my eyes, probably has like the worst judges in the nation. They tend to mess things up, but on this card, they weren't needed because the card was so damn good. A lot of finishes. So I say we move on to one of these finishes, the co-main event. Kevin Holland gets himself a 2nd round Darce choke submission versus Tim Means. And this was basically what I expected from this fight. Kevin Holland had the power edge. He had the reach edge. He's younger, faster. He had all the tools to win this one. Tim Means, on the other hand, is happy to strike, and he's super hittable. And that's what happened here. Kevin Holland did look good. Sure, he got taken down, but he got right back up. No problem. This is exactly what I expected. Tim Means got hurt, and Tim Means either does two things when he gets hurt bad. He either falls over or he gives you his neck. He's done this many times. He's done it enough times for me to think it's not a coincidence. I think he does it damn near on purpose, thinking he can defend the submission. But Kevin Holland is a Travis Lutter black belt, so he got that neck and he slapped on a Dutch choke, and Tim Means tapped pretty much right away. And this was a signature win for Kevin Holland at welterweight. He looked even better than he did against Alex Cowboy Oliveira, and now he's calling for ranked names, and I think he deserves them.
Yeah, I think you talked about, obviously, at welterweight, Kevin Holland looking reborn. Another fantastic win. Round two, clubbing and subbing him. He got it done. The Dark Choke was executed perfectly. He's a problem. I feel like this match might have been a little bit challenged for Kevin Holland because, obviously, the long, rangy style of the Means, but obviously Kevin Holland dropping down as well from 185. It played to his factor. He looks really long, looks really fun to watch. I think that, obviously, the Nico Price matchup at welterweight. Wow, that's incredible.
Yeah, I think that the fight for him is actually going to be the winner of Ali Jingliang and Muslim Salikov. That fight is coming right up, and I think that would be a striker's delight either way for Kevin Holland. And it's good for him while he works on that wrestling.
So many matchups that you can put Kevin Holland into. It's ridiculous.
Yeah,
he's fun, he's entertaining, and that's what you know what you're going to get. So it's good.
Yeah, and he got it done in front of his home crowd. But you wouldn't have known that it wasn't Joaquin Buckley's home crowd. The guy had so much love in the Austin area, man. Everybody was going crazy for him while he was destroying Albert Derived's face. Buckley won via third round TKO 10 seconds in, but it was actually right at the end of round two. Joaquin Buckley looked career best in this fight. Derived had claimed he had done a lot of successful work against Buckley in the gym previously, but it didn't show here. Buckley was able to defend pretty much all takedowns, and he landed a clean head kick in the first round. Derived returned with the same head kick, but Buckley then rocked Derived at the end of round one. And in round two, Buckley starts hurting Derived constantly, and the same eye that really got puffed up and pretty much closed in his last fight against Roman Kopylov, it swelled up again, and it's obviously scar tissue from the last fight. And yeah, he was looking really awful enough for the doctor to call it off. Buckley looked fantastic. He did not slow down, and he could not miss in this fight. Derived, his striking defense is a huge issue, and I think he's more of a Ramazan Ameev than an Islam Makhachev. He's one of those guys that, sure, he's got the style that you think would be successful, but I don't know if he implements it all that well. So Buckley is looking fantastic right now, and I can't wait for his next fight, and I think it should be a guy that won on his card. And I'm talking about Gregory Robocop Rodriguez.
Yeah, exactly as you were saying. Buckley, fantastic performance. We talked about, obviously, Derived having that, that wrestling pedigree and being able to take down Buckley, but every time Buckley got taken down, he popped straight back up.
Yeah, Buckley's clearly been working on that defensively, and he's such a good athlete, and he's not even 30 yet. I think he's like 27. I think this guy definitely will make his mark in the UFC before he's done.
Absolutely, I agree. And someone else who's probably going to make their mark in the division, that's Damir Nurmagomedov. Sorry. Yeah.
This next fight was technical as hell. These are two guys that, had they been like a little more active, they're definitely in the top 10 of the UFC's lightweight division. These guys are straight up savages. They have insanely good records, and they only fight killers, and they tend to beat them. Both guys were on solid streaks. Guram Kutalate had just beaten Mateusz Gamrot in his debut, and Damir Nurmagomedov had beaten Rafael Alves. both guys on great runs, but one guy's run had to end, and that was Goran Kutalate's run that ended here. Damir Ismagulov is now on a 19-fight win streak in his career. And this was such a close fight. Split decision. First round was a Kutalate round. He was able to be more aggressive, land the bigger strikes. Ismagulov was happy to just stay on the outside, land jabs. Round two, that was a fight. That was a round where Ismagulov got a little busier there, a little more aggressive. That probably won in the round. And then round three, that was a toss-up, man. A real toss-up. The numbers were slightly in favor of Goran Kutalate. He actually got himself a takedown. But as Damir Ismagulov was like going up, he lands this knee. And the knee lands on the chest, but Herb tried to land on the head. So we get a little break, and he loses the position as a result. So I think Herb Dean kind of screwed Goran there. And losing that position on the feet, it stays pretty even, but Damir does land the big the bigger shot in that last couple seconds there, and that's probably what won the fight. But razor close fight. I think these are two guys that will cement themselves in the UFC's top 10 of their lightweight division because they're just that damn good. They're good everywhere. They're technical as hell. I really think both guys are going to be real players in the division in the next 2 years. Damir, on the other hand, I say it's time to get him one of those guys in the top 15 or near that. And Are You Intoxicated in the chat says, Guram has been so unlucky with his schedule. I don't think it's like luck. I think it's just he'll fight anybody, and he tends to fight guys that will fight him in competitive fights, and it's all about what the judges think. But he's now been in 2 split decisions with world-class fighters, so he's got nothing to be ashamed of. And I actually thought he won this fight, by the way.
Absolutely, it was a fantastic fight. Very, very razor close. I mean, the main card of this event was ridiculous, and another one that we could talk about, obviously, RoboCop. We talked about him last week. You were really high on this guy. You talked about Julian Marquez just not being enough, and I mean, RoboCop, he showed it.
Yeah, he straight up destroyed Marquez here. Marquez didn't look like he had a chance. He got tagged early, and from there, he could not recover. Rodriguez reminded me a lot of Jacare now. He's got great jiu-jitsu, but the guy's got real pop, and why even go to the jiu-jitsu if you can wreck guys on the feet? And that's what he did out here. Marquez, as I mentioned before, super hittable. He'd never been knocked out, but I felt that Rodriguez was the kind of fight where he would finally go down. And he did. I thought it would last a little longer, but Rodriguez, he's improving, getting more accurate. And I thought he would win by submission. He did try to submit him. He rocked him bad, knocked him down, and hopped on the back, but he slipped off. So he went back to punching him, and it worked out for him. Marquez toppled over at the end of the first round, and Rodriguez had one hell of a celebration there. I really like his style, man. He's exciting as hell. I think we're going to be looking at him as one of the staples of the middleweight division, and he's all action every time he fights.
Yeah, he's got some good matchups that you could possibly put him in the future. But as you talked about, his jiu-jitsu being so good that his hands work because everyone's scared, obviously, of the takedown.
Yeah, man. I really like his style all around. And somebody else's style that I love is Adrian Yanez. Adrian Yanez won via first-round KO against Tony Kelly. There was a lot of heat on this fight over Tony Kelly's past comments as a cornerman. And Adrian Yanez, he had some Brazilians in his crew, so I'm sure they were all hungry to get this win, especially. And Yanez was on a 4-fight win streak heading into this in the UFC. All of those fights getting bonuses for him, and this is no different. He got himself that 5th bonus performance of the night with a first-round KO. Tony Kelly got rocked early, and after that, he could not find his footing. Yanez really couldn't miss. I pointed out that Tony Kelly was really hittable, and he proved it here once again. But Yanez is just ever improving, man. He's gotten a decision with inferior fighters before, but in this one, he just put the lights on Tony Kelly. He went ahead and followed up. That was a really bad late stoppage. Tony Kelly was clearly out, and then he got woken up during the stoppage. Are you intoxicated in the chat? What did he say right here? He said Kelly deserved it. You could argue that. You really could. And Yanez pulled no punches. He gave Kelly a middle finger right as Kelly was waking up from the beating. So there was real bad blood in this one, and Yanez got his satisfaction here.
Yeah, it was Kelly who put his middle finger up first, wasn't it? On the before we went on before they fought. So bittersweet. Obviously we're talking about the fight. Adrian Yanez, fantastic striking. His accuracy. It seems to see every punch lands. It's incredible. I know if you look at the stats here, just over half land, but it seems more than that. Every time he throws a punch, I think it just got a 90% of chance of landing. It's ridiculous, his rate. There's some fantastic matchups that you can put with Adrian Yanez in the future. He's now in the top 15, ranked number 15. If you look above him, it's just excitement. It's just fight the night potentials. There's a lot of talk of Adrian Yanez versus Sugar O'Malley, but man, it's incredible what you can do with Adrian Yanez. I believe he's up there with I can't remember who, but he's 5 out of 5 UFC fights, and all have either fight the night bonus or performance of the night bonus. So this guy's entertaining.
Yeah, and now he got ranked in the top 15, so these ranked fighters can't keep ducking him anymore. So can't wait for his future. We'll go to the prelims.
Pedro Munoz, if that can work out.
Yeah, I think the loser of Ricky Simone versus Jack Shore should fight Adrian Yanez, because I like that fight. We'll move on to the prelims. The prelims were, in my opinion, better than the main card somehow. The amount of KOs was wild. And this fight was a decision, but it was so entertaining. Natalie Silva, we had known her as a jiu-jitsu girl, basically. But with the 3 years off, she just changed her whole style. Now she's a Muay Thai fighter. Insanely good kicks, speed on everything, accuracy, fantastic cardio. There's a lot to love on her. And Jasmine Desvicius was a big favorite. We were confident in her. We thought she would be able to defend the submissions. We were just way off with our pick here. Desvicius, we know she's hittable, but Natalia Silva was just so good. She made Jasmine be desperate at times. We literally saw Jasmine jump across the cage with hammer fists because she couldn't hit her. Her footwork was just so good, Silva's. And she was landing insanely powerful kicks constantly. She even got the crowd to chant her name. I really don't think anybody knew Silva prior to this fight. She was pretty much an unknown. We thought she would just get dominated. That was not the case. Even when Desvicius went for takedowns, she defended them, got some of her own. Yeah, I couldn't be more impressed with her performance. And if you ask me, she had the most impressive performance overall on this card.
Yeah, it was a fantastic performance you were talking about. As you talked about the 3 years off, comes back in a completely different fighter. Fantastic performance. And as you see there, 120 strikes, total strikes to 40. It's ridiculous. A fantastic performance. And as you talked about, probably one of the best, or if not the best performance of the night. It was fantastic. I'm excited to see obviously what we can do with her in the future. This card was ridiculous. It just gets you excited for now to see what happened on this card for them to fight again. It's just they're just building up, the excitement. So I'm really happy to see where Silva goes from here. The flyweight division, but as you talked about, our pick was incredibly off. But one pick that was incredibly off, that was mine. I thought Court McGee was going to get it done. I believe if I said, or maybe Wells, but I said about Court McGee having the durability and not getting knocked out, and Oscar Silva said no, he's getting knocked out.
Yeah, the told you so fight of the week right here. Very happy to win this one. Jeremiah Wells is a powerhouse. And a lot of people, the perception online was that McGee weathers the early storm. He's durable as hell. And he'll win the decision, grind out Wells. They said Wells had bad cardio. The bad cardio does not matter if you get knocked out right away. And that's what happened here. Wells has been able to get early finishes in his last two. McGee was an older fighter, very weathered, I would say. And I had confidence that Wells had similar power to that of Santiago Ponzinibbio. He proved it here. He landed a bomb so massive that it put McGee straight out. Like, McGee was stiff as a board. When McGee fought Carlos Condit, he got dropped in the first round, but he did not have this kind of reaction. He was completely out, and Wells just has that different kind of power that you gotta watch out for in the first round. And McGee was just too slow to get out of the way, and that's what happened. Wells gets himself another impressive finish. I can't wait for what Wells will eventually do in this division, because he's part of that Daniel Gracie Philadelphia gym that is undefeated in the UFC. Andre Petrosky, Sean Brady, I'm forgetting the other names right now, but that gym is Pat Sabatini. Yeah, it's a gym of killers. Wells is one of them, and he proved it.
Absolutely fantastic. Obviously showcases grappling in his last fight against Blood Diamond, but obviously a kickboxer with not too much experience, so there's not too much we could take away from that. But this one, absolutely fantastic. His explosiveness early on, a danger to anyone. So it was phenomenal, a fantastic finish, and it was a finish after a finish. I mean, Ricardo Ramos with a spinning back elbow, another one, 2 inside the UFC now. And as I saw you put in your story, probably one of the first, only ever guy that's going to get 2 inside the UFC. It's incredible. He opened up with spinning attacks. His striking was looking good. I know he's known for his BJJ and his grappling, but his striking is getting there. And against someone like Danny Chavez, where I would say his striking is where he shines.
Yeah, there's only been 5 spinning back elbow KOs in the UFC, and Ramos has gotten 2 of them in his UFC debut versus Eamon Zahabi. He scored one in the 3rd round, and now against Danny Chavez. A minute and 12 seconds into the fight, he gets another one. And this was a wild KO, one of my favorites of the year. Chavez got put to sleep, and the cage saved him from falling down. He was stiff as a board up against the cage, and he just fell over. Ramos, I always kind of diss him in a way for going for it, because it's so rare for it to happen. But when you land it twice, I'm not going to discourage him anymore from throwing it, because I don't think anybody's better at doing him than him. He's proved it now, getting 2 of them. That's basically all that happened in this fight. I thought if it was extended, Ramos could win with grappling, but he didn't need it here. That's exactly what you want to do. Fighters dream about getting finishes like this, and he got it.
Absolutely, it's a fantastic fight, and as you talked about, the finish was ridiculous. It was a fantastic sequence, and there's been 5 spinning back elbows, and he's been part of 2 of them. I feel like we've had a lot of spinning back or spinning finishes this year. We talk about obviously Zhang, Molly McCann, and obviously now we've got Ramos. I can't think of any more that comes to mind.
Yeah, the competition for knockout of the year keeps on growing. Loving it. This fight was one of the few decisions on this card. Maria Oliveira beat Gloria Paula by split decision. As an underdog, I feel like nobody really gave Oliveira too much of a chance. She had fought really bad competition, but she's another fighter that was very improved on this card. Her cardio was looking good, very high output, very aggressive. She was super inaccurate though. She landed like 33% of her strikes here, but that little bit of aggression made a difference here. I actually thought that Paula maybe did enough, but this is a fight where nobody got robbed. Round 1 was pretty clear for Oliveira, if you ask me, but rounds 2 and 3 were a bit of a toss-up. This is what you want to do when you lose your UFC debut so dominantly like that. She proved why the UFC signed her. They knew something that we didn't.
Absolutely, I agree. It was a good fight, as you talked about. Only one of the few decisions on the card. I just talked about a good way to bounce back and proving to the UFC why they kept her. And I mean, we started off with the card with a fantastic way. 3 finishes back to back. Eddie Wyman obviously getting knocked out by Cody Stamann, and then obviously after ultimately calling it an end of a career. So. Fantastic career for Eddie Wyman. Obviously, the first ever bantamweight, I believe, WEC champion. So what a fantastic career. But Cody Stamann, I mean, he put on a fantastic performance, and what finish?
Yeah, this is what I saw happening. Cody Stamann, he usually tries to wrestle in fights, but when you're fighting Wyman in this form, just swing for the fences, man. He doesn't have a style that is defensively sound, and he's slowed down, so he's not going to get out of the way in time. And Stamann believed in his striking here, and he was rewarded for it. He tagged Wanlin early, drops him, followed up, and the ref pulled him right off. And for Wanlin, it's now the end of his career, the inaugural WEC champion. He's fought a lot of great competition, been right up there with them. Fought for the interim belt versus Renan Barão. But yeah, been really solid career for Wanlin. Everybody respects him. That's what you want ultimately in your career. And for Stamann, great way to get the confidence back up after a skid. He's finally not fighting on one of these killers, so of course he's going to look good.
Absolutely. I think it's just the confidence boosting that obviously Cody Stamann needed, and he's going to fight his way back to the rankings. But that bantamweight division is stacked. It's probably going to take him maybe 2-3 wins to even probably get in that argument again.
Yeah, I really think from here, Stamann has great options, and he used to be ranked. A lot of people forgot that, and in my eyes, he beat Song Yudong, who has a main event coming up with Corey Sandhagen. So he could jump right back in the mix. And we'll move on to the next fight. Phil Hawes gets himself a second-round TKO over Deron Win. Wow, this was one of the most violent fights I've seen in a long time. Phil Hawes nearly beat the life out of Deron Win. The story of this fight was Phil Hawes hurt Deron Win, broke his orbital bone early in the fight, and Win never got his footing back. Hawes hits like a truck. What he did to Jacob Malkoun in his UFC debut was remarkable. 17 seconds. So we were assuming if Phil Hawes hits a man that many times, they should go down, but nobody really knew how good Deron Win's chin was. Sure, he got rocked, but the guy just would not go down for anything. And Phil Hawes could not miss. This is the best performance of his career. His striking is looked so good. Now he's putting elbows into the mix. And when you're fighting a fighter with that short of a reach, elbows are one hell of a tool, and he proved it here. Deron Win took an incredible amount of punishment in this fight. Herb Dean probably could have stopped it a little earlier, but nonetheless, Hawes got himself the finish late in round 2. Wow, we thought maybe we were going to see some wrestling here, but we saw a violent striking beating by Phil Hawes. Wow, one of the most remarkable performances of the year. You could even gave it fight of the night if you wanted to. I don't know. They gave Sean O'Malley and Chris Moutinho fight of the night. That was one-sided as hell. So I actually thought this fight was more entertaining.
Yeah, exactly. And if you look at Phil Hawes' record, very underrated. He obviously shined on his debut, as we talked about, against Jacob Malkoun. On the Contender Series, one of his fights didn't go his way against Julian Marquez, but I feel like if they ran it back this time, I think it would be a different story. Imavov beat Carl Dorcas, and obviously beat Deron Win, and his only loss inside the UFC, excluding the Contender Series, was against Chris Curtis, who burst onto the scene. So, he's got some good wins. Obviously, that Natalie Imavov, that looks really good right now.
It certainly does. Imavov has a fight coming up with Dricus du Plessis. No, never mind. No,
it was Kelvin Gastelum, but
yeah, I don't think he's booked right now. But for Phil Hawes, that Chris Curtis loss was real tough. But besides that, he's in great form in the UFC.
Absolutely. And then obviously someone else who was in great form, Rome Dolidze, finishing it within a minute.
If you listen to this podcast, you were rewarded when it came to the underdogs. I picked Jeremiah Wells as an underdog when he was on the show, and Roman Dolidze was a pretty big underdog here. Cal Dawkins was bigger than a 2-1 favorite as a favorite, and I should have stuck to my guns. Cal Dawkins, sure, he had some advantages in this fight, but two advantages that win a lot of people fights are power and the power advantage and the wrestling advantage. That's what Dolidze had. Sure, his technique is poor. He gets tired, but that will get you far in certain matchups. And we had a clash of heads right away. Unfortunate. And I actually think that's probably what led to the knockdown right after, because Sure, Kyle Dawkins, he's been dropped before, but for him to be that hurt, I think it might have been due to that clash of heads, because that was a real, that was a hard clash of heads. Not something you should only take like 15 seconds off for. And Kyle Dawkins is too tough for his own good. Went right back into the fray, got dropped right away, and then Delite grabbed onto him in the clinch, and he lands a clean knee right to the dome, and Dawkins goes right to sleep. The sound of the knee was incredible. It was as clean as it got, and Delite got that early finish. It gave the card the momentum it needed to become one of the best of the year. Wow, what a way to kick it off. Delite is a powerhouse, but that clash of heads really was an asterisk on the win.
Yeah, and exactly, you put it perfectly. And some work probably to be done for Dorcas. Lost to Hawes, lost to Allen, and now to Lidze. So back to the drawing board. He'll probably assess, and he'll probably definitely come back strong. He's still got a lot of potential. Still very, very young in his career. 29 years old, so he's still got a long way to go.
Yeah, especially at middleweight. Yeah, ever since he got off the Contender Series, he's been on a run of fun fights. And yeah, that was a short little fun fight there. UFC Austin was off the chain, man. I'm sure if you were in that arena, you were screaming your head off all night, and you probably lost your voice. I still can't believe some of the KOs we saw on this card. And the UFC now heads back to the Apex, and I'm not going to lie, it's kind of a bummer there's no fans, because it feels so good watching fights with fans. But hey, we have one hell of a card right in the Apex, and I say we get to it.
Absolutely. So, main event, take it away, Oscar.
UFC Vegas 57 is headlined by a lightweight clash between Arman Tsarukyan versus Mateusz Gamrot. Sure, these guys don't have name value, but they're world-class fighters that will have name value in the near future. Arman Tsarukyan, his only loss in the UFC is to Islam Makhachev, and it was a competitive fight. In fact, he's the guy in the UFC that has gotten a takedown over Islam Makhachev. Mateusz Gamrot, on the other hand, his UFC debut was versus a guy that we just talked about, Guram Kutatatladze. And that was a split decision that Guram thinks that Gamrot won. So Gamrot, in my eyes, is pretty much undefeated. He was the KSW double champ. Everybody was talking about this guy because he's so good everywhere. He's a great kickboxer. He knocked out Scott Holtzman in the UFC, and he's a fantastic submission grappler. He even got matched up with the great Gary Tonin in a grappling match. That lets you know the level that he's on. If you don't know, Gary Tonin is one of the best no-gi grapplers in the world, and Gamrot was matched up with him. Gamrot is accomplished as an ADCC grappler, man. He's gotten medals in the tournaments there, and he's proved it in the UFC. Submission over Jeremy Stevens. First round Kimura. How often do you see a Kimura in the UFC, especially in the lighter divisions? He pulled it off. When he fought Carlos Diego Ferreira in his last fight, he got himself a TKO. It was like a rib injury. Gamrot is super dangerous everywhere. And the difference here is he has 5-round experience. He was the champion in KSW, so he was fighting those 5-rounders. Tsarukyan, on the other hand, he has not fought those 5-rounders yet, but I think his grappling is really good. He doesn't appear to be all that tired after 3 rounds, so I think he'll be fine here. And he's a humongous favorite in this fight. Minus 250. I don't agree with it. I see him more as minus 150 in this fight. I think Tsarukyan will win, but this will be very competitive all the way through. On the feet, it's very close. I actually think Tsarukyan has a little bit of an edge. In terms of kicks, I actually think that Gamrot is better, but punches and power, I actually give the edge to Tsarukyan. Tsarukyan recently fought Christos Giagos, and he got a first-round KO there. Very impressive. And after that, he fought Joel Alvarez. And that Joel Alvarez fight was a fight where a lot of people were actually thinking Joel Alvarez was going to end his UFC win streak. And he really made those people look dumb because he took down Joel. He landed vicious elbows, cracked him open, And from there, Joel really couldn't see all that well, so he got smashed. And he was a blind man defending himself, and he got the TKO in round 2 via crucifix. I believe it was. The octagon looked like a crime scene. Sarukin's a very dangerous guy. He also fought Davi Hamosh in the UFC. Davi Hamosh, one of the best grapplers to grace the octagon. And he took him down easily, and he was not given any problems on the ground. So, sure, Guram's a great submission grappler, but I don't see him threatening Arman Sarukian all that much on the ground. And on the feet, Sarukian will be able to do some damage there, just like Guram was able to do some damage on the feet. So this will be a close fight, maybe a split decision, but I think Sarukian has the higher overall ceiling. He's still young. I think he's 25. And I think he'll work his way to the top 5 and eventually a title shot. And if you ask me, I think he'll be champion one day. I'm going to call it right now. Sarukian, 18-2 at 25. I think we're looking at a future champion here.
Absolutely. I feel like we're looking at two fighters that would definitely meet again down the road. Gamrot would definitely get to the top. And obviously, you talked about Arman definitely going to get to the top. I agree with you. I think everything you said is pretty much spot on. Gamrot probably the better striker, more technically, but doesn't hit as hard as Arman. And I give Arman to Zurikin, the wrestling and the grappling advantage. But, obviously, Gamrot is a fantastic wrestler. I feel like we're going to see a little bit of defense. Or grappling defense on show. So, but I do favor Arman, and I think it's going to go that way. But what would you say? Do you reckon this one goes to the scorecards, or do you reckon there's a finish in this one?
I really think we're going to see a decision here. This reminds me of the Kutata to Latsi fight against Damir Magulov. Both guys are so technical. They're not really making that many mistakes like championship caliber fighters. I don't see them overextending all that much or getting sloppy on the ground. I think we're looking at a decision here, but a very competitive and entertaining one.
Absolutely. And
we'll move on now to the co-main event. Yeah, Neil Magny taking on Shavkat Rakhmonov. This is exactly the kind of fights that Neil Magny finds himself in. He finds himself in fights where he's an underdog. He finds some hot prospect coming off a win streak, tons of finishes. And the old Neil Magny, what he would do is he would weather the early storm in that first round, early second round. Then he would get that second round. And in the third round, his opponent would be super tired, and he would just outpace him, make him miserable, and win that decision. But that was Neil Magny back then. Neil Magny's not as durable as he used to be. In his last fight, he fought Max Griffin. Max Griffin, historically, is the guy that wins by decision in the UFC. But since then, he's believed a little more in his power. And Neil Magny has fought less powerful people than Max Griffin, and he's done well for himself. An example is the Jeff Neal fight. But against Max Griffin, for some reason, Griffin, who's a little older, I don't know, man, he was getting hit a lot. He got dropped in that first round, and I thought he was about to get knocked out. And in the second round, he gets hurt again, but he's able to hurt Max Griffin in the second half of that round. So he steals that round. And then round 3, Griffin is super tired. Neil Magny, muscles him, dominates that round. But with Neil Magny, if it was a 5-round fight, maybe he's got maybe more of a chance. But the fact is, I don't really see this going to the scorecards anyway. Shavkat has a fantastic record, and all those wins that he's gotten, his 15 wins, have all been via finish. He's a sambo guy, very physically strong, great kickboxer. He's a master of sport and hand-to-hand combat. The guy is powerful. In his last fight, he fought Carlston Harris. He got a wheel kick, and then from there, he went to the top of the mount, and then he went for ground and pound until he knocked the guy out. Shavkat, also in his UFC debut, he fought Alex Cowboy Oliveira, rocked him, got an easy guillotine against a black belt. I think Neil Magny's one of his major weaknesses has always been submission defense. The Damian Maia fight, of course, no shame in that, obviously, but the Dos Anjos fight was a red flag, man. Dos Anjos was recently a lightweight there. He gets chopped down with those calf kicks, and then immediately on the ground, he cannot defend an arm triangle. And I really think that that's bad news if you find Shavkat. He's got one hell of a guillotine on him. And on the feet, Neil Magny's he's getting slower, man. He's not reacting as well to the damage as I said in the Max Griffin fight. I really think this is a fight where Shavkat will rock Magny constantly, and I say early second round he finds himself getting the finishing blow and getting himself a knockout early second round.
Absolutely, I'm definitely on the Shavkat train. 15 wins, a lot, most of them by finish. I can't remember how many times he's actually gone to decision, but it's ridiculous.
All of them by finish.
All of them are finishes, which is ridiculous. And his last fight against Carson Harris, I thought Carson Harris was obviously a really good fighter. I thought he had a chance, but Shavkat, absolutely shut me down. I'm definitely on the Shavkat train. I think Nurmagomedov is a phenomenal fighter, has championship ability, potential, and I think Neil Magny is definitely that path to the title that he's going to need. I feel like the welterweight division is everyone's going to eventually fight Neil Magny, and then this is Shavkat's time. As you talked about, Magny's been submitted 3 times in his career. 2 of them, obviously, he talked about Maya, and the other one against RDA. And the RDA one, he talked about big red flag, and that's where I see this one going. I think Shavkat is gonna either it's gonna be second or third round submission. But as he talks about in his last fight, Neil Magny against Max Griffin, one that Magny probably would have won 2-3 years ago comfortably. Just didn't look that comfortable.
Yeah, that was a red flag there because Neil Magny was my most confident pick on the card. I thought that the Neil Magny bold would show up. He did not, man. And when you weather that many first rounds, it's not good for you long term. And it's showing up with Neil Magny, and I'm going to capitalize on him now. Another example where where Shavkat flexed his submission ability. He fought a really physically strong grappler in Michel Prazeres, a black belt, and he took his back in round 2. Rear naked choked him in the UFC. That's not easy to do at all. So Shavkat should be able to win via submission or knockout or whatever you want to mess. But as I said, no judges needed in that one. Second round finish for Shavkat is what I see going down. And we'll move on to the featured bout of the night. Pretty surprising to see this right here, honestly. Josh Parisian, who's winless in the UFC, versus Alan Badeau, who I believe is winless in the UFC as well. Josh Parisian, he's a really interesting case.
Has a win against Rocco Martinez.
Oh yeah, I actually didn't score that fight for him, so yeah, that's why. That's why I thought. But Josh Parisian is in the Contender Series a couple years ago. He gets himself a spinning back fist on the show, and you would think that probably guarantees him a contract. Well, it didn't. Instead, Dana White goes ahead and signs him right onto the Ultimate Fighter show. That had to be a tough beat for Josh Parisian, who did not even win in the house. And I'll be honest, that season was not exactly super stacked with high level talent. I'll just say that. And then he goes back on the Contender Series. He fights an undersized guy. He gets a takedown and gets a ground and pound finish right away. Not all that impressive. And then he debuts in the UFC versus Parker Porter as a favorite. This before people were really woken up to the skills of Parker Porter. And he gasses out after round 1. And Porter really puts it on him. Lots of volume, and he's behind the whole fight. And he loses that one. Then he fights Rocky Martinez. And in that fight, he looked awful as well. He got tired right away. And then Rocky Martinez, he got a lot of control time up against the fence. Rocky Martinez, of all people, who's 5'10", in really awful shape, he was able to hold Josh Parisian, the bigger man, up against the cage, get a lot of control time, land a whole lot of clinch strikes, but the judges didn't respect her for whatever reason, and they scored the fight for Josh Parisian. I thought he lost that fight to Rocky, who's no longer in the UFC. I don't think Josh Parisian is UFC caliber. But on the other hand, I don't think he's UFC caliber either. So this is a fight where both guys have glaring weaknesses, so it's hard to pick. But on the other hand, I trashed him bad when Parker Porter. Parker Porter was my lock of the night. He came through, but I'll give credit to Alan Badeau. He made it a fight, and he made it a split decision. Parker Porter looked bad that night. Badeau's size was a factor there, but he's known as Cyril Gahn's training partner. But I can't believe Cyril Gahn trains with this guy. This guy is a really low-level fighter with not great skills. He's bad defensively. He got knocked out by Tom Aspinall in his UFC debut. He got knocked out by Dolce Lungiapula, who's now fights at middleweight. He's a guy that's not a real heavyweight. He should be down at light heavyweight, but he's got ties with Cyril Gahn, so I think that's why he's in the UFC. But at the end of the day, I will be signing with Ambadeau in this fight just because he looked a little better against Parker Porter than Parisian did. So I will definitely pick this fight to go to the distance, but it's all about who has more gas left in the tank, and I'll side with Badeau there. But yeah, do not bet this fight if it's not for it to go to the distance, because both guys are incredibly flawed.
Yeah, as Oscar likes to say, this is a massive coin flip fight in the heavyweight division as well. And you talked about going to the scorecards, which is quite rare for obviously the heavyweights. But yeah, you talked about heavyweights quite get a lot of showcases on the main card, and I do feel like there's some prelim fights that could definitely take over this fight. So I don't know what it is with the UFC, but yeah, this one's tough to pick. It could go either way. I'm going to favor Josh Parisian. I can't say his name, but Parisian in this one. Josh Parisian in this one. But yeah, it's a close one. It could go really either way. As you talked about Badeau being that training partner of Cyril Gahn, but it's I just don't see him either being, as you talked about, UFC caliber. But I favor Josh in this one. But a close one, a tough one to ask.
Yeah, we'll move on to the next fight, a much better fight. Thiago Moises is taking on Christos Giagos. Both guys have found themselves fighting really tough competition in the UFC. Giagos has had to fight Arman Tsarukyan and Charles Oliveira in the UFC. So Tsarukyan is not a guy that's been matched up with soft matchups. So I won't be too harsh on him. But at the end of the day, he's a guy that prefers to kickbox. He does have decent jiu-jitsu, but at the end of the day, a really good grappler will be able to snag up a submission. That's what Moises should be able to do here. Let's go over some of Giagos' previous fights. In this last fight, got knocked out versus Arman. No shame in that. Tsarukyan, Sean Soriano, when he fought Sean Soriano in that first round, he got rocked by Sean Soriano. Sean Soriano is no longer the UFC. And in the second round, he rocks Sean Soriano, and then he gets a submission. And before that, he beat Carlton Minus. But if you look at some of these losses here, it's Drakkar Klose, Charles Oliveira, and as I said, Arman Tsarukyan. So we're not exactly where he's at, but he's not all that terrible, and his submission defense is pretty poor, I would say. Thiago Moises, on the other hand, his striking is looking really good as of late. When he took on Alexander Hernandez, that was his coming out party, because prior to that, he didn't look all that great on the feet. When he fought Bobby Green, he was losing the striking there. Same thing with Michael Johnson. But he goes and he fights Alexander Hernandez, and wow, he looks really good there. He hits Hernandez whenever he wants to. He's feeling himself in there. And since then, he's gone on to fight Islam Makhachev, but as I said, that was a fight where Makhachev pretty much did whatever he wanted. But Moises' biggest, in my opinion, his biggest moment was when he tried to get a leg lock in the third round. Makhachev defended it fine, but he actually really never truly got out of it. But I think he can snag up a submission, whether it be a leg, an arm, a neck. I think he can do it to Giagos, and I think he can rock him too. Moises in his last two, Joel Alvarez, he got that was a really shocking fight for me. Joel Alvarez was able to beat him up with elbows and uppercuts in round one. That was a bad loss, but Joel Alvarez really is a monster. But before the Makhachev loss, he had beaten Alexander Hernandez, Bobby Green, and Michael Johnson. So this is a guy that's ever improving. He's younger. He's training at American Top Team. He constantly spars with Grant Dawson. I think we're going to see Moises get himself a submission. I'll say round 3. After he hurts Thiago's on the feet, he'll find a submission. I'll say leg lock.
Absolutely, as you were talking about Moises, you got some good wins on the name. The coming up party was against Alexander Hernandez. He's got some good submissions. Obviously, he broadcast that in the Michael Johnson fight. Got that the ankle lock. But that's something we always wanted to find out. But obviously, he came up against Islam Makhachev, and obviously it was going to be a tough ask. And his last fight against Joe Alvarez, we talked about him previously. Joe Alvarez is a fantastic fighter. Just levels, and obviously Moises, the different in the lightweight division that we're in. There's probably so many different levels that there is in the division. It's incredible. But yes, Christian Yagos, as you talked about, his loss in his last fight against Arman Tazarian, obviously losing as well. This one's a very close fight, but I do favor Moises. I think the grappling and obviously the striking. I feel like obviously the smart thing to do for Thiago Moises is get this fight to the ground as quick as possible and look for a submission. I think that's a smart idea, and I think that's what he will do. And if it gets to the ground, I think Moises is going to find that submission early. Maybe I like the arm triangle. I think that would work.
Yeah. Moises is very physically strong. Yagos is more of a kickboxer, and I think Moises will have a lot of grappling success. He's a high-level black belt. And against Makhachev, as I said, he was threatening submissions, which is not – it's hard to even attempt a submission on Makhachev because that's how tight he is down there. Move on to the next fight. Nate Maness versus Khabib Nurmagomedov's cousin, as many people know him, Umar Nurmagomedov. Umar is going to be that guy that everybody talks about in the next year or so. 14-0 right now, getting a lot of quick finishes. A lot of people think some Russians are related to Khabib. This guy's actually Khabib's flesh and blood, right out of his training camp. He's the real deal, man. I really think when it comes to striking, outside of Usman Nurmagomedov, I think he's actually the best one. The kicks he throws are so good, man. He's trying to have his punches catch up to his kicks, but his kicks are really, really good, man. And the question mark kicks he likes to throw are going to be really effective against Nate Maness. Nate Maness is a jiu-jitsu guy mainly, but he's got really solid striking. In fact, when he fought Tony Gravely, he basically got knocked out against Gravely, but saved by the bell. And come out the second round, he's able to knock out Tony Gravely. So this is a guy that's got no real quit in him, but I think Umar, it's all about how Umar wants to approach the fight. If Umar wants a takedown, he'll get a takedown. If he wants a knockout, he could get himself a knockout. But I think Umar will kickbox for him a little bit, but I think he can take him down, take his back, and choke him just like he did to Brian Kelleher. Brian Kelleher, I think, is pretty much on a similar level in terms of jiu-jitsu with Nate Maness. Umar, he's got that Sambo style. I think he'll be able to get himself a neck. I was so impressed that he did that to Brian Kelleher because Kelleher is not all that easy to submit. So for Umar to do it that easy in the first round, I think why would he take the harder path here? I think he'll be able to get Nate Maness to the ground and get a rear naked choke.
Absolutely, this is a fantastic outro. You talked about Umar, obviously very, very well skilled. You talked about, obviously the striking, it's fantastic, and obviously the grappling as well, unbelievable. And obviously that, as you talked about, the second name, Umar Nurmagomedov, it's you just know what you're going to expect, and it's going to be one-sided. I think Nate Maness is obviously, I feel like maybe outmatched in this fight against Umar Nurmagomedov, and I feel like it's going to, as I talked about, the grappling is just going to be way too superior, and obviously the striking as well. I think he's going to get your striking working, but I think the accuracy, takedown accuracy of Nurmagomedov is just going to be a massive factor. And then once he gets it down to the ground, I think that's where he's going to shine, obviously, and he's going to get that submission win. Last three by a rear naked choke, so clearly his most favorable position.
Yeah, and he's the biggest favorite on the card for a reason. It's down -800. And he'll look every bit of it. As I said, he should be able to get an early finish, probably submission, quite comfortably. And we'll move on to the middleweight opener of the main card. I'm very excited for this one. It's the return of the action man, Chris Curtis, and he's taking on Rodolfo Vieira. This is a fascinating fight from multiple angles. If you look at the Chris Curtis side and his UFC run, it's been just a wonderful tale. This is a guy that was on a great run outside of the UFC. He was fighting as often as he could, getting finishes, and then he fights who was it? Phil Hawes in Madison Square Garden on short notice. He was legitimate. He was a welterweight. He was a welterweight. He's moving up on short notice. It probably shouldn't go well for him, and it wasn't going well. He was actually getting outstruck by Phil Hawes, but one counter strike, and Phil Hawes can't really feel his legs, and he goes down. That was so impressive. And then he fights Brendan Allen. People didn't think lightning would strike twice, and it did there. Allen, very cocky, leaves his chin up in the air. He knocks out Brendan Allen, too. Now people are awake as to what this guy can do. Sure, he's a welterweight, but the guy with more size at middleweight, he actually hits harder at middleweight. And his wrestling is good. His cardio is good. His boxing is good. He's fighting Rodolfo Vieira, who is, he's a scary guy to fight because on the right now, he can submit anybody in the UFC. Absolutely anybody in the UFC. When he fought Anthony Fluffy Hernandez, though, that was a bad night, man. Because he overexerted himself. He thought he could submit Fluffy. Because Fluffy, he actually got submitted before by Brendan Allen. So we all thought he should be able to do the same. And he was unable to do that. Fluffy was well prepared. And come the second round, he was gassed. And he got hurt bad. And then he went for a desperation takedown and got caught in the arm and guillotine. After that, he goes and he fights Dustin Stoltzfus. And he's jab happy. He's basically only throws jabs and like 1-2s. He fights safe as hell. You look at his face. He's super nervous. Like he's very tense because he's scared of he looks uncomfortable striking. And he's like scared of getting tagged. He's scared of getting tired. I just see that on his face when I'm seeing him fight. And when you find Chris Curtis, you just can't fight that way. That jab will be countered with something big, and it'll drop him. So I think this is a fight where Vieira realizes he can't have much striking success versus Chris Curtis with the basics that he puts out there, and he's going to try to take him down. Maybe he gets a takedown. I think Curtis might be able to, hang on for dear life and defend, but I actually don't think Vieira gets takedowns. I think Curtis defends all of them. He's the better wrestler. And on the feet, he should box up Vieira. Vieira will get tired in that third round, and Curtis will land that big bomb, just like he did on Allen and Hawes. I think he knocks out Rodolfo Vieira in round 3.
Absolutely agree. What made me choose Chris Curtis, as you talked about there, was Vieira in his last fight. As you talked about, timid, scared of getting hit, and if you look at it on the other side of him, he's got Chris Curtis, who just knocked out 2 incredible fighters, Phil Hawes and then Brendan Allen. If you look at the Chris Curtis record, he's only been submitted once. That gives you a little bit of confidence heading into this one. He's been finished a few times, most of them by TKO or KO, but one submission loss. A little bit of confidence. And obviously, if you look on the opposite side of him, he's got Vieira, one of the best practitioners that we have inside MMA. Competed in the ADCCs, but we're seeing when he gets tired, it all goes. Everything's learned, everything's trained for, it just goes out the window. So, as you talked about, I think Chris Curtis is going to be able to survive at least for the first round. I think it may be a little bit of an onslaught, a lot of pressure, submissions, maybe coming at him. But I just feel like in the round 2 and round 3, that's where we're going to see Chris Curtis, really take over, land a lot of shots. Probably not knock out Vieira, but maybe a standing finish. Maybe one we look at where we think the ref probably should have stepped in sooner.
Yeah, I think this is going to be a bad beating for in the favor of the action man, Chris Curtis. That's a very exciting fight. It's a fight where I definitely see it ending inside of the distance. I think Curtis gets a knockout, or for some reason, Vieira finds a submission. So very excited for that fight. I say we move on to the next fight. And this fight is at light heavyweight, Carlos Ulberg versus Tafon Nchukwi. this should be a striker's delight. I don't see any grappling going down here. Both guys are former kickboxers. Carlos Ulberg, in his UFC debut, he handpicked an opponent. His team was given like five or three names to choose from, and they chose Kenny Nchukwu. They thought he was like the easiest opponent for him, so they went ahead and got him. And for a while there, it was actually pretty easy. He was destroying Kennedy, but as soon as he got tired, he folded. He got dropped and knocked out. Really sad debut for him. Then he comes back like a year later, and he fights none other than the Water Buffalo. Why am I?
Fabio Cherant.
I can't remember the name right now.
Is it Fabio Cherant?
Yeah, Fabio Cherant. Yeah, there we go. He got released after that fight. That fight was so bad. Oh my goodness. Carlos Ulberg decided to pace himself in that fight and be super safe. And that resulted in him having like an Adesanya versus Romero type performance, man. The guy looked really bad out there. He just didn't go for it in any facet. Fabio, on the other hand, did a whole lot of nothing as well. So, Ulberg, in my eyes, is very untested, inexperienced. Tafan Nchukwu, I used to say the same thing about him. Untested, inexperienced, but now he's got that experience. In his UFC run, he beat Jamie Pickett, really wrecked him on contender series, knocked out Chimaev Patti with a head kick KO. He's a very physically strong guy. He did move down to middleweight, and he fought the Iron Turtle, and that didn't work out well for him. I feel like that weight cut, he was detrimental to his performance. In this fight against Carlos Ulberg, he'll be able to do what he did versus Mike Rodriguez. In that fight, he was able to just out-muscle him, get some control time in the clinch, and I think he's got the power edge in this fight. Sure, Carlos probably going to be a little more technical, but I think the physicality will come into play here. Ulberg does not have a good gas tank. I think that Tafan with that will wear him down in the clinch, slow him down, and that will create more openings for Tafan to land some heavy strikes. So I think I'll choose Tafan as the underdog in this fight to win this one. I just can't trust Ulberg after what he's pulled in his first two UFC fights.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree, and I think Tafan Nchukwu has the potential to even finish Carlos Ulberg. Obviously, in that first fight, against Kennedy Nchukwu, not a fantastic performance. Went out there, tried to get a finish, tried to impress everyone, and it completely backfired. When you're a kickboxing, a really good kickboxer outside of MMA, or you're fighting in kickboxing, only a few people can transition to MMA and be successful. We've seen it with Adesanya. We've seen it. We might see it with Alex Pereira. It's a really hard adjustment. It's a totally different sport. To be honest, it's a totally different strike, and everything's totally different about it. And obviously, Carlos Ulberg learned that. And Nchukwu has had success in MMA. Knocked out William Knight before he got to the UFC. The guy has power, and it shows it. And I think it's going to be a full display. And Carlos Ulberg talked about his chin against Kenny Nchukwu, even though he has that kickboxing background, and I just feel like he takes a little bit too many shots as well. His chin's a little bit high up, and I feel like if you're going to have that against Tafan Nchukwu, I think you're going to pay for it, and I think he might even land early and completely shut the lights off for Carlos Ulberg. If not early, it's going to be late when Carlos Ulberg's definitely tired.
Yeah, and I think the reason Tafan is an underdog here is because he got knocked out in his last fight with a flying knee by Azamat Murzakanov. That was the fight that he was winning. He won rounds 1 and 2, and his corner said, "Go put a stamp on this, get a finish," and he gets caught with a flying knee. Sad fight there. That was the fight where he was the underdog too, and he was looking damn good using his physicality, his pace. I think people forgot that he was a winner in that fight, so I'm going all the way here with Tafan Nchukwu. We'll move on to the next fight. Shayalan Nordembeka versus TJ Brown. I love this fight. These are two guys that have a grappling base, but their striking is improving on both sides. Shayalan Nordembeka, his UFC run, he's been 1-1, but he's shown that he can really hang with some of these guys. He fought Josh Kulba, who Josh Kilbau, only since then, his stock has grown tremendously. But in that fight, he was able to accrue a lot of control time there. He's very physically strong, but he's not doing all that much damage in that fight. That's why it wasn't scored for him. And TJ Brown, on the other hand, has found himself in some wars in the UFC. He fought, who was it? Danny Chavez back in UFC.
Kamaka. Wow.
Yeah, that was a straight up. That was a tough fight for him. He got his leg chopped off, and against Jordan Griffin, he got choked out. But besides that, he fought Kai Kamaka, won a split there. That was one hell of a fight. And then he fought Charles Rosa, and he got a lot of grappling success in that fight. He got takedowns, got on top. Yeah. But he against Shalian Nordebeke, this is going to be a really tough fight. I think Shalian better think about doing some damage in this one, or TJ could squeak this one out, doing more damage on the feet. But Shalian, when he fought Sean Soriano, that was pretty impressive, because Shalian, he tends to, really give some guys some issues on the feet. He's a striking coach at Sanford MMA, but in that fight, he was able to outpace Sean and win a decision there. I think in this fight, I think he'll win a close decision versus TJ Brown. I think he's the better wrestler. I think he's physically stronger. It's all about him doing some damage, because these days judges are very they respect the damage a lot. They don't respect the clinch control time like they used to. So I'll pick Shalian, but not with a ton of confidence.
Well, this one could be the told you so fight of the week. I'm going with TJ Brown. Pretty much everything you said was spot on. TJ Brown obviously been in close fights, and I think it's going to be another fantastic one. I think TJ Brown's just going to drag him into his sort of fight, and we're going to see probably a close split decision, like we saw against Kamaka. A fantastic war against Chavez as well. That's what I think TJ Brown needs to do, is grab him into his sort of fight, bring him down to his sort of how he likes to fight, and that's exactly how I see it going. But yeah, TJ Brown split decision. That's the way I like it. So probably told you so far of the week. This one is probably a really close fight to choose from, as we're talking about. But wow, the prelims, they've got some really good fights on, and then the next one as well is really good.
Yeah, very excited for this one. We'll move on to the next one. Raulian Paiva versus Sergey Morozov. I think they should swap this fight with the Parisian and Badou fight. I love this fight. These are two guys that are very high-level bantamweights. And most other divisions, they would probably be ranked guys. Raulian Paiva is a former flyweight. At flyweight, he had a really solid run, but I felt like he was huge for the weight class. So I don't think the weight cut was good for his health there. So he did eventually move up. But at flyweight, he got himself a win over Zhalgas Zhumagulov, and that's a solid win. I know Zhalgas doesn't have a great UFC record, but Zhalgas is very well rounded. And when he fought Kai Kara France, I thought he beat Kai Kara France. The Bontarine fight was a loss via cut stoppage, but I thought he was doing good work there too. But when he moved to bantamweight, I was so impressed with him, man. I know it's like a robbery win, but that was a draw in my eyes. He fought Kyler Phillips. Kyler Phillips was fresh off a win over Song Yadong. Everybody was super high on Kyler Phillips. Kyler Phillips was like a -300 favorite in that fight. He should run over Raulian Paiva, and he did in the first round. He rocked him, knocked him down, was landing the finishing blows of the fight, and then the round ends. Come round two, Kyler Phillips is gassed. He's going for the finish, but Raulian Paiva rocks him right back and gets takedowns in round three, and he survives that. But the round one was a 10-8, so it was a draw in my eyes. But nonetheless, if you can survive that storm against Kyler Phillips, Paiva's got my respect. So when he fought Sean O'Malley, I gave him more respect than most, but I did think Sean O'Malley would be able to knock him out. That's what Sean O'Malley did, but that's Sean O'Malley. He does that to pretty much everybody. Sergey Morozov, on the other hand, UFC did him no favors in his debut. He goes right in there and he fights Umar Nurmagomedov. We've already told you guys how highly we think of Umar. And in that fight, he got submitted in round 2. What are you going to do there? But after that, he fights Khalid Taha, has a great performance, wins a unanimous decision. And then he goes on and he fights Douglas Silva de Andrade. In that first round, he looked incredible. He knocks him down. He gets some grappling success. It looked like he was on his way to get a finish. But he got overexcited. He got tired. And come that second round, he then started getting rocked himself. And he was so tired. He got submitted by Douglas Silva de Andrade, who's not that much of a grappler. So that is a red flag there. Raulian Paiva, in my eyes, has got a better gas tank. And he's a little bigger here. So this is a rough one to pick. It really is. But when you look at the underdog odds on Raulian Paiva, I will side with him because he's got the better gas tank. And we could see a situation where maybe Morozov has a ton of success in round 1. And Paiva weathers that storm once again and wins a decision here. Raulian Paiva should be able to use that reach advantage. And hopefully he's learned from the Sean O'Malley fight. He took some time off. I think he's learned from that. His takedown defense here should come in handy because he trains at Team Alpha Male, a room full of some of the finest wrestlers of the lowest weight classes. I think he should be able to attempt some takedowns here, and he'll have higher striking output. He lands 4.13 significant strikes per minute, and Morozov lands 2.78. So I will side with Raulian Paiva as an underdog here, but this is a very close fight. Probably going to decision.
Yeah, I like Raulian Paiva in this fight too. If you look at it, as he talked about in his last fight, Sugar Sean O'Malley, and Paiva was classed as the biggest test for Sugar. So it shows the level that we thought he was at, and I feel like he's still at that level. Obviously, beating Kyler Phillips, Nurmagomedov, obviously had that stint down at flyweight, Kaikra France, Bonneton, but Morozov, if you look at his last few fights as well, losing, as you talked about, losing to Andrade, not exciting. If you look at, he's had 5 losses in his MMA career. 4 of them he's been finished. Some of them, most of them by rear naked choke. A few of them, one of them by KO. And I really like Paiva in this one. I feel like he's the better grappler. And obviously the striking wise, it could be a close one, but Paiva, obviously, I feel like he's probably on a. This is a tough one to call, and it says on the odds as well. But yeah, I think Paiva it's definitely got the makings to get this one. I think the grappling as well is going to be close. But yeah, it's crazy because obviously in his last fight he was fighting on the main card against Sugar, and now he's on the prelims. But I think he's going to get back to winning ways. And obviously Morozov is going to be on a 2-fight losing streak, and I feel like he's going to be with some pressure on his next fight after that. But I think Paiva's got all the means to get this one done, and I feel like he's going to win.
Yeah, very excited for that matchup. We'll move on to the next one. JP Buys versus Cody Durden. This is a battle of wrestlers here. JP Buys, he's not had a great UFC run. On the Contender Series, he looked good, but there's been a real case of, guys being complete busts from the Contender Series. I'm not entirely sure that JP Buys is, but he fought Bruno Silva, who people had a very low opinion of because he was a skidding fighter. And JP Buys, he got dropped multiple times in that fight and eventually got knocked out in round 2. JP Buys appears to, not have the greatest durability. And then after that, for some reason, the guy goes ahead and he takes a fight with Montel Jackson at bantamweight. He was incredibly undersized in that fight, and he got dropped 4 times in that fight. I have no idea how Montel did not finish him in that fight. But nonetheless, he actually was able to take Montel's back in that fight. He attempted several guillotines. I was actually really impressed by his heart in that fight. And to me, it appears that when he's fighting at bantamweight, he can take shots better and he can recover better for them. And this is not just for me. He was on the Schmo Zone podcast, and he talked with the Schmo after he lost to Bruno Silva. And he said that he just had no chin at flyweight and that he wasn't going to go to flyweight. And after the beating he took from Montel Jackson, I guess he realized those bantamweights hit way harder. So now he's back at flyweight, the division that he said was unhealthy for him. and he's fighting Cody Durden, who doesn't hit all that hard, not much of a striker, so he should be, a little safe in that department. But when it comes to physical strength, it's very hard to tell who's got that edge here. Cody Durden is slightly bigger, a little taller. It's going to come down to who's physically stronger. I will probably trust Cody Durden more here. He's more proven. He beat Alatante Lee, I believe it was. And on the feet, it's a toss-up. It really is. But I think Cody Durden maybe will fight a JP Bays that is a little tentative because, as I said, he gets rocked easily at flyweight. So I will side with Cody Durden here. This is going to be a close one. Probably a lot of grappling, but I'll be siding with Cody Durden.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with you. I've got Cody Durden as well. If you look at Cody, previously had kickboxing and boxing experience. He's tested the waters over there. He's had good success as well. He's won three boxing bouts and obviously one kickboxing bout as well. So the hands I feel like are going to be better than JP Buys, but as you talked about, confidence is probably not key on this one. A very, very close fight at flyweight, and as you talked about JP Buys, going down to flyweight after his chin not being the greatest, and obviously going back down, I feel like he's going to probably get cracked once again, but he's not going to get finished. I feel like he's going to get clubbed, and then obviously maybe a submission, or maybe just controlling. Cody Durden as well. It's just close from grappling, but if you get hurt and you're on the ground, you're not going to know where your whereabouts is, and I feel like a submission is definitely available if he knocks him down. But striking wise, I favor Cody, and then JP Buys probably has the edge grappling, but it's a tough one to call.
I got a little tidbit for you here. JP Buys, after he lost his first Contender Series fight, so he fought on Contender Series in 2017. He fought it at flyweight, and this was after he had like a couple fights on the regional circuit at flyweight. He fights at flyweight versus Joby Sanchez, who really hasn't been heard of since then. He lost via second round ground and pound. So after that loss, he goes on to only fight at bantamweight for 4 fights outside of the UFC. And once the UFC calls him, then he goes down to flyweight. So this is a guy that does not like cutting the flyweight. So maybe he gets tired out here, and Cody Durden can find a ground pound finish. So do not bet on JP Buys this week, even as an underdog. We'll move on to the next fight. Brian Boom Kelleher versus our guy, Mario Batista. I really love this fight. These are two fighters that always have exciting fights. Brian Kelleher, of course, best known these days for the guillotine, the boom team, he likes to call it. Mario Batista, on the other hand, is a guy that is really defensively sound. And in his last fight, he fought Jay Perrin on short notice, and he put a vicious beating on him. Some of the best clinch work I've seen in recent memory in the UFC. Very high volume. The big loss he had, though, was the fight versus
Trevin Jones.
Versus Trevin Jones. Before that, his only loss was Corey Sandhagen via armbar in his UFC debut. Mario Batista will beat the majority of these high-level guys, but it's all about being a defensively sound. Versus Brian Kelleher, he does have pop, but it tends to only work on the lower-level guys. He's got a win over Jin Soo Sun and over Miles Johns. He got that flying knee. So in this fight, I think he's got the striking edge. He's a little younger. He's fighting out of good camp. Brian Kelleher may look for some takedowns here, but Mario Batista, he's got a good takedown defense, man. I think this is a good fight for Mario. This is probably going to be a fight going to decision. I'll pick Mario by unanimous decision here in this fight, and he does have a higher striking output.
Absolutely agree. Mario Batista, we talked him up big before the Charles Jones fight, or maybe I can't remember. It might have been before the Charles Jones fight, and then obviously only got knocked out. So
I think he did.
Yeah, but as you talked about, his only loss has been Trevin Jones, Corey Sandhagen. Obviously, no no shame in them. But he bounced back against Jay Perrin. He talked about one of the best clinch works that we've probably seen as of late. Fantastic work. But now Brian Kelly, obviously that grappling, it's always on display. Was it the Pilates fight where he just kind of just sat on him, and the clinch fight?
Yeah.
So
he looked incredible in that fight. Constant takedowns in that fight. Very easy fight for him.
Exactly, and that's what we've got to see here. The only time I see Kelly losing is probably to a better grappler. If you look at his recent losses, Umar Nurmagomedov, better grappler, Rocky Stamann, better grappler, and obviously Cody Stamann, better grappler. Mauro Batista, do I see him being better grappler than Brian Kelly? No. I think Brian Kelleher is the better grappler. And I think it's going to be a full display. I think obviously Batista would have to probably crack him early, but I just see Kelleher probably being far too experienced and the better, just too good at grappling in this one to be able to not get the win. Basically, is what I'm trying to say. I think Brian Kelleher is going to get it done. I think we've got 2 Told You So fights to the weekend. I can see him coming in already.
How about it? Well, very, very excited for that fight, especially now that we're on opposite sides. We'll move on to the opener of the card. Vanessa Demopoulos taking on Jin Yu Frey. This is a very interesting fight. This is a fight that I'm very confident in, but I feel like this is one of those. This is the type of fight where like nothing that I said was going to happen happens. Vanessa Demopoulos, she's got a black belt in jiu-jitsu. She's got the same teacher as Kai Kamaka. She got the black belt because in her last fight she fought Silvana Gomez-Juarez. She got hit with an overhand right. The lights are out. She's getting hit with punches while she's out. She wakes up from the punches, only to grab Silvana Gomez-Juarez's arm and take it home with her. She gets a first-round armbar. One of the craziest comebacks I've seen in the sport. And then, but if you look prior to that, she fought, who was it?
JJ Aldrich.
JJ Aldrich. JJ Aldrich is a better version of Jin Yu Frey, quite obviously. Aldrich, very physically strong, good wrestler, solid boxing, and that's what she did in that fight. She was able to stuff the takedowns for Demopoulos and get takedowns of her own. She was unthreatened by the submission attempts, but that was up a weight class. So now at a proper weight class, she does good work. But when she fought Lupi Godinez back in LFA, that was that was a really bad beating she took in that fight. Really bad beating. And also, if you look at the Corey McKenna fight, I actually thought she won that fight, but she was constantly getting taken down, held down, and her best offense, especially since she loves her jiu-jitsu, is to go for arm bars. And when she doesn't get him, she's stuck on her back. And that's just not a great visual for the judges. I would say the best win she had in her career, besides the Gomez-Juarez fight, was the Sam Hughes inverted triangle in round 4 of the LFA fight. That was something. But is she going to pull off submission here? I doubt it. Jin Yu Frey, she's the better striker here, quite obviously. And she's the bigger girl here, physically stronger. But you know what happens these days with women's MMA. For some reason, we get more upsets in women's MMA than we do in men's MMA. So even though I'm super confident Jin Yu Frey should be able to outstrike her on the feet if she wants to, she should be able to get takedowns if she wants to and hold her down. We could see some crazy number here. But the pick here is Jin Yu Frey by unanimous decision, and she should look great doing it.
Absolutely agree. I think Jin Yu Frey should it's golden makers to win this one. Better striking, the grappling. I feel like it should be able to hold off the Demopoulos, but it's a very close one. He talked about this is women's MMA. We could say how we think it's going to go, but it's probably not going to go that way.
Yeah, as we saw in the last week, we had Natalie Silva. Nobody knew. She shows up out of nowhere as a great striker, and she wins the upset. We got Mario Oliveira, had fought horrible competition, no wins in the UFC, lost on the Contender Series. She looks good out there, and she wins. So, like, for some reason, in women's MMA, just, it is what it is. It happens. And the armbar here, it's a possibility because Kay Hansen got a triangle armbar on Jin Frey in round 3 back in 2020. So yeah, Jin Frey, it's all about can she defend that submission. But if I'm Jin Frey, I just go ahead and outstrike her on the feet, stuff the takedowns. That's probably what she should do here. But Jin Frey has shown a poor IQ in prior fights. Like when she fought Loma Lukbumni, she didn't go for a ton of takedowns. That was just a bad move. But yeah, that's a fascinating fight for me. And that's one of many fascinating fights on this UFC Vegas 57 fight card. And that main event is fantastic. That's one where if your friend doesn't know about these guys, you have them sit down and watch the fight because they're going to know those guys after that fight.
Yeah, just take a look at that main card. It's absolutely stacked. Obviously, that heavyweight fight probably can get replaced, but other than that, it's fantastic. Nurmagomedov, Shavkat, Arman versus Gamrot. Oh my goodness, Nate Manners versus Nurmagomedov.
Yeah,
Chris Curtis, the action man. It's ridiculous. Yeah, we've got a good weekend for MMA. Actually, but we've finished up with the UFC talk. We've also got PFL and Bellator this weekend. We've also got Cage Warriors. I've interviewed a few fighters from Cage Warriors. Talked to Michael Techomu. I talked to Kolan Lokran. And then also today I talked to Harry Hardwick. So they will be coming out later this week towards fight day. So interesting to see how they get on. I feel like they all have potential to win. Definitely. Michael Techomu's got a good matchup fighting a Northern Irishman in Northern Ireland, and then Harry Hardwick fighting an undefeated Italian. A very hard fight, but I think he's gonna get it done. And then Kolan Lokran, this guy is phenomenal. He can talk on the mic. He's got the skills. He's got everything, man. He's got a persona. Definitely one to look out for in the future. He's Irish, so that probably helps his marketing skills as well. So it's good. But PFL and Bellator this weekend we'll talk about. I talked up on Cage Warriors there. Make sure you check them out on YouTube. Interviews are coming out later this week. But yeah, let's head over to Bellator or PFL. Choose your fate.
Yeah, I'll go right ahead with Bellator. Like in this Bellator card right here, it's Bellator 282, headlined by the middleweight title fight between Gegard Mousasi and Johnny Eblen. This is a similar test for Gegard that Austin Vanderford was, a great wrestler, and Johnny Eblen. Eblen is actually undefeated at 11-0. I really think this is not going to be too different in a way. I know Eblen had watched that fight with Vanderford. He's trying not to make the same mistake, but the striking edge in Gegard is pretty big here. I know Eblen in the last fight he fought John Salter, got a unanimous decision, defended all those submissions. Colin Huckbody, who won on the Contender Series, he was able to knock him out in round 1. He's a real menace, man. He's a real menace. But this is not a good matchup for him. It's just not. Gegard is a great defensive wrestler. And, the kickboxing on this guy is fantastic. If you look at the list of legends he's beaten, guys like Dan Henderson, Lyoto Machida, the list goes on and on. He's one of the most underrated fighters ever. When you're talking about nearly 50 wins and you do not have double-digit losses, that's incredibly rare. So I will pick Gegard Mousasi, one of the greatest fighters ever. I think he beats Johnny Eblen. Johnny Eblen just does not have that experience yet or the striking to really compete with Gegard. I will go with Gegard via third round TKO.
Yep, I absolutely agree. Mousasi, as you talked about, one of the most underrated, one of the best to even fight inside MMA. He fought up at heavyweight, fought at light heavyweight. This guy's really done it. I mean, back in the day, if I'm correct, it said he fought Mark Hunt. And
beating Mark Hunt, rear naked choke.
There we go. So he's been around. He's done it all. But as you talked about, a very similar matchup to his last one against Austin Vanderford, and I see the similar fate. And then I see Johnny Eblen taking on Austin Vanderford after this one. So yes, this is a similar matchup, and I think it's going to be Mousasi's way. I can't even remember off the top of my head the last time he lost. Probably inside the UFC. Has he took a defeat inside Bellator?
Yeah, he had split decision.
Lovato Jr.
Who was it?
Lovato Jr.
Oh, yeah, I forgot that, man. Poor Lovato Jr., man. What a run he had there for a little bit. But Mousasi in the UFC, man, he knocked out Chris Weidman. Are you kidding? Like, Mousasi's resume is off the chain. And I think he'll add to it with Johnny Eblen, who's a real solid name. From here, Mousasi, after this, if I'm not mistaken, Coker said he can go for the 205 belt.
Wow. So obviously the 205 championship.
Light heavyweight.
There we go. So that'll be a good one. But he talked about he left the UFC on an incredible run. Chris Weidman, Uriah Hall, Victor Belfort finishes. If he was still inside the UFC, I still can see him being up there top 5, top 3.
He would have beaten Michael Bisping. I'm very firm on that. Michael Bisping was one of the most vulnerable champions, but he played it smart. Did a little acting, got a couple, procedures done. He played it smart while he was champion. I'm not going to wrong from that. But Mousasi, Jacare, there was a lot of guys waiting in the wings that Michael Bisping, fortunately did not fight at the time. Yoel Romero too. Yikes. Let's go to that co-main event. It's part of the Bantamweight Grand Prix. Leandro Higo taking on Danny Sabatello. I love Danny Sabatello. He's like Colby Covington, but he does not go over the edge of personal stuff. I love him. Obviously inspired by who is it? The guy that owns ATT. Dan Lambert. There we go. Dan Lambert, who's now a character in All Elite Wrestling. Obviously getting some promo tips from him. He does a great job with it, man. And I believe everything he says. In fact, I'm just going to regurgitate what he's been saying. He's going to dominate Leandro Higo with his wrestling. In the striking, Danny Sabatello, not special in terms of striking, but that takedown threat is always there. Leandro Higo, on the other hand, he is a pretty dangerous striker, but I'm just really going to side with Danny Sabatello here. Feels like all the momentum is on his side, and I feel like we could see this guy possibly in the finals.
Absolutely agree. His character is phenomenal, and obviously Higo, a fantastic veteran in his last fight against Darren Caldwell, a former champion. But I feel like Danny Sabatello is just on a different wavelength, different fighter. Too good. The grappling is going to be too technical for Higo to be to even get what we're looking for, to be able to get a hold of, basically.
Get overwhelmed,
Danny Sabatello is going to put himself on the map, and definitely on the mic once again, as you talked about. Very good on the mic. This Bellator card, it's stacked for one. If you look at Bellator, this one's really good. You got Brendan Ward, Brent Primus, former champion, and also you got Kat Zingano versus Pam Sorensen. What I would probably say is the number one contender fight for Cyborg, but
yeah, I would 100% bank on that. I have no idea what Cantagano has not gotten a title shot yet. Everybody wants it, but hasn't happened for whatever reason. But I do want to touch on the other Bantamweight Grand Prix fight, Magomedov versus Enrique Barzola. Magomedov, as I said before, one of the few guys to beat Piotr Jan. It's only been Magomedov and Aljamain Sterling that have beaten Jan. So for him to have that name on his resume is incredible. Barzola, on the other hand, is on a fantastic run right now, man. In the UFC, sure, he had a couple of losses. One of them was Mozart Evlov. No big deal there, but at the end of the day, Mozart Evlov and Magomedov, similar style there. I think we should be seeing a lot of top control from Magomedov. Barzola might be able to make some things interesting with his takedown defense, which is really good, fighting out of AKA, but I do think Magomedov can outpower him, and on the feet, he should be able to stay safe. So I will pick Magomedov to move on in the Bantamweight Grand Prix.
Absolutely. I absolutely agree. And the wrestling is obviously going to play a massive factor. And Magomedov in his last fight obviously didn't get the better of Stotts. Stotts now champion, so no shame in that loss. So, well, interim champion. But yes. Fantastic fight card. As talked about, you touched up on that one. Brendan Ward is fighting Kat Zingano, Anatoly Tokov as well. Sabahu Marcy hits like an absolute truck. Expect a finish in that one. Prospect Cody Law, 6-0.
Yeah,
very good one to watch out. Aaron Jeffrey as well. So,
Aaron Jeffrey, man, he's had a tough run of things. I think he had to fight Brendan Allen on the Contender Series, and then he had to fight Caio Borralho on the Contender Series. Yeah, they did him dirty on the Contender Series. one of those guys that probably should be in the UFC. He can hang with a lot of guys, but yeah, some bad matchups he had to face.
Absolutely. Bellator snatched that one up. Mando Nialo as well, another Canadian prospect. One to look out. It's a really good card for Bellator, standard. It's a good one. Definitely one I pay attention to. But as we've got PFL as well this weekend. We'll quickly talk about some of the featured matchups that we like to look at. And obviously the top one, obviously the heavyweight. Really not. To be honest, don't really know much about them. I know Bruno Capoloza was the last year champion. Obviously that co-main event is what I'm looking at. Is the Anthony Pettis versus Stevie Ray, Carl Bochniak, Chris Wade, Rena Friera, Kalitsian Abreu. A lot of veterans from the UFC. Maurice Green, Juan Adams. Man, it's a decent card.
Yeah, I'm really liking this card. We got some former PFL champions in the mix. Lance Palmer. Bruno Capozola, he won the heavyweight tournament last year in 2021. Got himself the decision win over Ante Delija there. And he's taking on Mateus Sheffield, and he's a Contender Series guy. He fought Azamat Mirzakhanov, and he got dusted in the first round. I expect Bruno to dust him just well. Bruno hits real hard, man. And I think he'll get that the max points to move on in here. I really like that. In a way, I do like that PFL rewards those quick finishes. So, yeah, I see a quick finisher. Bruno Pettis versus Ray. Stevie Ray is just one of those middling guys from the UFC that, was unceremoniously cut. And then he's taking on Pettis, who, man, in 2021, he just looked really poor in those fights. But it looks like he might be in better form now. He got himself submission in his last fight, and I think he should really go to grapple a little bit more here and there. But Stevie Ray, he's a solid grappler himself. And on the feet, Stevie Ray is a really good boxer too, but I think Pettis' kicks will be the difference here. I'm really hoping Pettis gets himself a decision here. Using his kicks, man. I just hope that Pettis does not lose this fight. It's really hard seeing him lose. So
yeah,
exactly. I will get Pettis. Do you think Pettis wins this one?
Yeah, I think Pettis has got all the means to win this one. Tough for me to say that, but Steve Ray, fantastic veteran. It took a lot of time outside MMA when obviously the UFC. He got that big win against, the biggest win of his career against Michael Johnson, and everything from there just went a little bit stale. Not much happened. Had his big return, obviously in the PFL. His first fight back, lost, didn't go his way against Alex Martinez, who I believe who did he fight? He fought the other.
He fought Jeremy Stevens. Oh wait, no, or was it no? It was Clay Collard, and he won a robbery split decision there. So yeah. But hey, he fought competitively with Clay Collard, which is hard to do, man. Collard is a monster.
Yeah, exactly. And then obviously, I want to put that one down as being out of the game for a very long time and just obviously ring rust. But I still feel like Anthony Pettis is should probably a different level at the moment. Been in the higher fights in his career. The experience factor is going to be very in favor of Pettis, but. Steve Ray, as you talked about, good grappling, boxing, durability-wise, been knocked out before against Leonardo dos Santos, where starched. But other than that, this is a tough one for me to pick. But I'm going to go Anthony Pettis, and the former champion. I think he gets it done. But as we're talking about, PFL's got a good card. Juan Adams, he wasn't meant to fight this weekend. Now fights this weekend.
Maurice Green too.
Maurice Green wasn't meant to fight this weekend, but now he fights this weekend. So alternates getting their shot. Lance Palmer against Shaman Moraes. Brendan Loughnane, one of my favorite fighters. This guy's a killer. From Manchester. In his last fight, he fought. Oh, who did he fight?
I can't recall right now. Was it Chris Wade?
Off the top of my head. Oh, Roji Kudo, Japanese. Actually fighting at the first fight of the evening. Here. He was meant to fight Boston Salmon, also a former UFC veteran, but
a lot of pullouts on the PFL card. Strange.
Exactly. Juan Adams getting his chance. I follow him on I have him on Facebook, and he's been preaching his chance, and everyone's been ducking him, and he's finally got his fight. So we'll see what happens. Maurice Green fought in CSA CSS, I mean, a few weeks
Yeah.
back or a few months back. So he's
Yeah.
he's on 1 fight win streak. So yeah, PFL is a good card. Obviously the main track.
Yeah, the main card I'm going to give out my Chris Wade should beat Kyle Bochniak. Kyle Bochniak, of course, struggled with grapplers in the past. Chris Wade, fantastic grappler. He damn near won the tournament last year. Henan Fadeda, on the other hand, his signature win is Muhammad Usman, knocked him out. Clifton Abreu, up at this heavyweight weight class, I think he's overweight, and I think Henan Fadeda will let him know. I think we see a second round knockout there for Henan Fadeda. Clifton Abreu, who got knocked out by Jamal Hill back in the UFC. So yeah, I think we're going to see some solid finishes on this card. PFL, they've been on a really good roll. They're signing more and more good names.
Absolutely, I agree. And after this one, it's a good one. I'm excited to see how it goes down this weekend. But that pretty much wraps up the podcast. We talked about Bellator, talked about PFL, and obviously we talked about the UFC. But I know we've got a good episode next week.
Yeah, we sure do. It's the preview for UFC 276. This is not completely locked in, but right now I'm in contact with my friend at MMA.ideas. He wants to hop on to help us preview that card because I'm sure everybody has an opinion or two on that main card because boy, oh boy, do we have big names scattered across the card. When Sean O'Malley's kicking off the card, the rest of the card is really going to be something special. Misha Tate gunning for a title shot. Alex Bejeda, Sean Strickland, the trilogy between Volkanovski, Holloway, and then Adesanya Kennedy in the main event. And then you look at those prelims. I think Jim Miller and Bobby Green are in the early prelims. I'm not even kidding, man. I think everybody on the card, pretty much everybody, was ranked or is ranked. So only names. It's literally only names that people know on the card. So I love that card. So next week should be a big episode, maybe our biggest episode yet.
Absolutely, I can't wait. Make sure you all tune in next week, same time, 12 p.m. Central, 6 p.m. British summertime. Have a fantastic weekend, everyone. Make sure you stay safe. Enjoy the fights. Plenty of fights to watch this weekend. So we'll talk to you all next week, where we get to talk about it, we'll break it down, and obviously talk about that, that good card week on the weekend, UFC 276. We're in for a store. A fantastic episode. But yeah, see you all next week. Thank you all for joining us. We've been on the air for about 1 hour and 42 minutes. Talk to you all next week.